So, welcome and thank you for joining us on today's webinar. Really excited about today's webinar. This is something we've been working on for a very long time. If you look at the sort of full history of this project, and it started off as a sort of fairly small ambition and grew into something much bigger and much more exciting. So today is the public preview launch of the Growth Engine. And if that term public preview doesn't mean much to you, I'll clarify what that means in a little bit. But today is all about the Growth Engine and how it can help you to grow your business. The agenda is pretty straightforward. Who's been involved in this project? Why are we doing it, and why should you care? What is it? And don't worry, this isn't going to be a death by PowerPoint. I will actually give a demo at that point when we get into what is it. And then sort of how do you use it, how do you get access to it, when can you have access, and what's coming next, because obviously, you know, as with all software, we've got plans for the future as well. So by way of introduction, let me tell you some of the people involved in this project, because it's not just been the traditional Prospect team, but certainly from the team, from Prospect, there's myself. Most of you will know me, but for those who don't, I'm Andy, or Andrew, and I'm the founder of Prospect, and also I effectively run the product management side of the product and the business. And Tanya, one of my business analysts, she's been heavily involved in this, and some of you may have liaised with Tanya over some of the other things that we've been developing recently, and most of you certainly will know Jess, our marketing manager, who's also been involved in this project substantially as well. But unlike most, and obviously all the developers as well, but unlike most of the features we develop at Prospect, this has been different because we've built these features and done all of this work in this project and the analysis in collaboration with Oxford Brookes Business School. So Matty, or Methuselah, is on the call with us today and will be presenting a little bit later. And he's been leading this from the Brookes side. He's employed by Brookes and been working with us effectively on a kind of consultancy basis for a substantial 2-year project, and we're sort of 3/4 of the way through that project now. Paul, Deanna, Ahmed, they are academics at Oxford Brookes who've all got a great interest and huge amounts of experience in the academic side of growing businesses. People with MBAs lecturing in business analytics, and real experts in this side of things. And of course, I should also say thank you to you, our customers, who inevitably give us loads of feedback and drive us to do some of these features. And in particular, I don't know if there are anyone on the call, but those who are involved in the private preview and the really early review of this feature. So those are the people who've been involved in it up to this stage. But why should you now get involved? Why is this important for your business? Well, a lot of that comes back to why we started this project in the first place. And you know, the truth is that most of you are SMEs, certainly in the government's definition of what an SME is. You know, relatively small businesses where there aren't a million people with loads of expertise in lots of areas, and most SME owners and managers that I meet, not all but most, you know, are effectively artisans or engineers. They know everything there is to know about roasting coffee or brewing beer or making widgets or, you know, recyclable food containers or whatever it is that their business is. They're super experts in that. And not many have MBAs or, you know, huge amounts of background in business analytics and you know, strategy for business growth. And One really telling fact is that most businesses that come to us looking for a CRM system who are looking for growth believe that acquiring new customers is the most critical thing they can do to develop that growth. And when we get into the analysis with them, that generally turns out not to be true. And even if it was true, even in cases where that is the most important thing for them to do, most of them don't have clear stats at their fingertips to help them measure how well they're doing in that process of customer acquisition. And certainly most of them don't understand the importance of customer lifetime value, and even more so, one particular facet of it that we'll get into a little bit later on. And most don't understand the importance of customer lifetime value, and the vast majority don't have any real stats to measure customer lifetime value. And even for the tiny minority of customers, some of whom may be on this call, who can put their finger on all of those stats and understand what they mean to their business, most of them takes a long time to calculate that and struggle to calculate it. And even if they are calculating it regularly, the next question is, what does good look like? If you know how long your customer lifetime value is, customer lifetime stays with you, how big your average order value is, how frequently your customers order from you, is that good? Does that stack up against other businesses in your country, in your region, in your sector? And obviously the final question, if you can answer all of those questions, the final question is, if you do have those stats and you know what good looks like, out of all of those things, where do you focus and what action do you take? What changes do you make? And so, pretty big ambition, but the growth engine, the whole project from start to finish has all been about solving these challenges for our customers. And that is a big ambition, and maybe slightly arrogant to think that we can solve that, but I think we're in a good position to try, partly because CRM systems are the obvious place to run the sales growth activities that would stem from all of this analysis. We've also got a lot of sales data to analyze. And sales growth, though, is all about maximizing customer acquisition and customer lifetime value. And lots of CRM systems out there, could analyze some of the activities around customer acquisition, things like lead generation, close rates, those kind of things. But Prospect CRM is unique in its ability to analyze not just those traditional CRM bits of data, but also analyze the ERP data that is required to analyze that customer lifetime value side of things. So we are uniquely positioned to pull all of that data together and then turn those things into sales and marketing activities through the CRM system. So before we get into what is it, I just thought I'd better answer that question about what is a public preview. So we've really got into a flow with new features and a structure for rolling them out in the best way we possibly can. And most of this is based on best practice within the industry. So obviously we start by sort of designing a feature or an update. And obviously that's based on feedback from you through the customer feedback portal and the votes cast in that, competitor analysis, our own analysis of the problem, that kind of thing, UX designs, all of that feeds into us then being able to build what we call a minimum viable product. And we just build the smallest thing that we think solves that problem in the most basic way. And then we'll run a private preview with that. And for the growth engine, we've already completed that private preview stage. But that private preview, we invite select early adopters to have a go with that MVP, to validate what we've done, both in terms of the software, but also in the way that we deliver it, in terms of the training, the documentation, how we describe it, how we help people to understand the problem and the solution. And obviously they give us feedback which goes back into the product and the documentation and things. And then once that's complete and we're comfortable that we haven't completely missed the mark, and that we've got something that's of real value, then we open that up to public preview, which and that's the stage we're at, where we know we validated this, but that doesn't guarantee that it's perfect. So this is now available to all customers to have a go with it. We're still at the stage of seeking active feedback, so that we can improve it, validate it further, resolve any issues with it, and then we'll put it into mainstream use. Now, there are some comments on this slide. It's quite a generic slide about this process. There are some comments about it being free or chargeable. Obviously, that varies depending on the feature. But what I would say is that during the preview stages, this is available to everybody, fully free of charge. And when it becomes generally available, it will still be available to the vast majority of people on this call free of charge as well, because most of you are on the professional subscription, and most of you have a standard CSP, and those are probably the criteria for having access to the full feature set. But as I say, for now, it'll be fully available for everybody to use during the preview stage, come what may. And then, of course, after general availability, we will continue to develop the software like we do with everything, and looking for ongoing enhancements to make it better and better and better. So that's where we're at. As I say, we've already been through this process with some early adopters, and we've had some great feedback. LampSource, long-standing customer, have looked at this and said the growth engine will drive sales growth within our business. And to be heard, interesting, they were already doing some of this analysis themselves, but were particularly excited to not just have it pulled together in a consistent way, but just to not have to manually crank a whole load of spreadsheets to produce this data. So, great feedback from those two customers. So that's all a great introduction, and hopefully got you all listening and interested. But what is the growth engine? It kind of comes in three bits. So first of all, it delivers a strategy for growth. Then it delivers some insights into how you're doing against those strategies, and then it helps you to take action. So in terms of that strategy, that includes some things that you may be familiar with and things that we started developing, 3 or 4 years ago now. The growth formula, like what is the formula for growth? And if you don't know what that is, I'm going to show you that in a second. The growth model, which is, what are the key things that you need to get right for that formula to work and flourish? And then the playbook, which is all about, some of the things that help you to achieve the strategies in that growth model. So that's the strategy, and you could take that without any software and use that to sort of guide your growth. But the insight is a critical bit of that, because that then measures, like, okay, you know what the strategy is, but the insight tells you your metrics against that growth. How are you doing against that growth model and those growth strategies? How is your business trending upwards or downwards against each of those? And more importantly than that, if it is going up or it's going down, like, how does that compare with other businesses in your industry? Is it going up but not going up as fast as everybody else? Things like that, and those things are important because there can often be market dynamics behind what's going on that make you think you're doing well because it's growing. But if the market that you're in is growing much faster than you're growing, then actually you're missing out on the growth you could be achieving, and there's clearly opportunity to do better then. So metrics of how you're doing, measured against benchmarks, against the industry, and then the dashboard kind of pulls that together and structures that, hopefully in a meaningful way that allows you to navigate those metrics and understand what's going on. And then once you've understood that, the action end of it is what is the best practice? What are other businesses doing across the world, and what is the best practice that Brooks would recommend, or that we would recommend, or that other industry leaders would recommend to help against, to improve those metrics in those different strategies. And there's education around what these metrics mean. And then, of course, there's some guidance in terms of what CRM features you might utilize to efficiently implement some of that best practice. And so you'll see some of these things are numbered. All the number ones are found in the Growth Hub, and the number twos are found in the actual software. And I'm going to show you those right now. So how does it work? Let's have a look at the software. So this is obviously a demo system. So some of the data might be not terribly meaningful, but this is the CRM system that you'll all recognize. And I can tell you, if I just go to the help icon here, that this is running on release 1.2.3. And some of you will already have release 1.2.3, but if you don't, you'll be getting it literally in the next week or two, depending on which release ring you're in. You'll be getting release 1.2.3 in the next couple of weeks. And when you get that, you'll find there's a new icon and entry in the main menu on the left-hand side. If you do have this collapsed, obviously it'll just be this icon. And that gives you access to the growth engine. So if we click into that, the growth engine will immediately start to load and show me analysis for my business. And obviously the first thing you're presented with is your revenue growth. And I should say that all of this growth engine stuff pretty much filters out any B2C data in your CRM systems. This is B2B data that we're focused on. So you can see that in this demo, my trend is generally upwards. My growth I've got growth. My turnover is increasing. Before I show you some of the other charts, one of the other things I'll highlight is that all of this is using trailing 12 months data. And you can see the toggle here that shows me that it's currently using trailing 12 months. And if I highlight that, it gives you a little brief explanation of what that means. I can switch it into monthly. The problem with monthly is that any monthly data obviously can obfuscate the trends, because you might have seasonal dips in the summer, booms just before Christmas, or if you're selling ice cream, maybe booms at Christmas and dips. Booms in the summer and dips at Christmas. And you can see in my data there's a boost in the spring. Maybe I'm selling Easter eggs, but there's a boost in the spring and a sort of dip at other times. But the trailing 12 months irons all that out, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail in a second. And you can then see that the total revenue is effectively broken down into the two key parts of the growth formula, which is customer acquisition. How well are we doing there? And you can see that I'm actually trending down a little bit on that. And customer lifetime value, which apart from a bit of a dip, is now trending upwards. So let's return to this trailing 12 months. And if you're looking for more of an explanation as to how trailing 12-month analysis works, you can see there's a little hyperlink here, and you can see all over, or you will see as I go through it, you'll see all over the growth engine there are little links highlighted in blue, which take us to various articles in the Growth Hub. So if I click on that, it'll take you to some explanation of how trailing 12 months analysis works, and how it smooths out trends that might be seasonal, or just sort of booms and busts month in, month out in a sort of slightly random way that all adds up to a good trailing 12-month trend. And you can read all about that if you like, but that's also a little nice segue into showing you the Growth Hub. So if I just link to that, you can see the Growth Hub is effectively a series of articles and guides with a bit of an introduction, and then how to succeed with each of the key strategies, and then some supporting articles around trailing 12 months, the one we've already seen, clustering and benchmarks, etc., etc. But before I get more into the demo, Let's just talk about the growth engine a little bit and the theory, the strategy behind the growth engine. So there is a little video that you can watch if you need to kind of come back to this. And then there's sort of various articles in here. But let's just link over to the growth formula. So the growth formula you've probably seen before, but just to clarify, it's a fairly simple formula that just says, if you really want to achieve sustained sales growth in a wholesale and distribution type, manufacturing type business, then the two key elements of that are getting more customers. If over time you can continue to get more customers, then clearly that will give you an element of growth. But really critically, you need to pair that with maximizing customer lifetime value and ideally growing that customer lifetime value over time as well. So as you refine your strategies for customer growth, if you can also refine your strategies for customer retention, average order value, and order frequency, then you'll develop higher customer lifetime value. And obviously some of that is easier said than done. So the growth model sort of really breaks that down into the key strategies that you need to get right. And if you get each one of these right, then the result of that growth formula, the success in that growth formula is fairly inevitable. So the key elements are attract. Are you attracting enough inquiries? And ideally the right kind of inquiries, so that you get a good flow of quality leads. Are you then converting those leads into what might be called sales qualified leads, which are the opportunities that we can genuinely go after, where we've qualified that inquiry, turned it into an opportunity that our sales team can go after. Because if we're not feeding our sales team with enough qualified opportunities, then we're not going to get enough new business customers. And there we're not talking particularly here about all opportunities. We're talking specifically in this scenario about opportunities that are related to customer acquisition. And I'll talk about that in a second when we get back to the demo. And then, of course, do we close enough of those? What's our close rate? And then a really critical bit of that, which I'll come back to, is onboarding. Once we've closed that customer and we've got one order out of them, do we do enough to onboard them, set them up quickly with a trading account, get the second order out of them, get the third order out of them, get the fourth order, and turn them into a repeat order customer? And then once they are that repeat order customer, or as it's sometimes called, once we've converted them from a sort of one-off tactical customer into a relational customer, are we then driving customer lifetime value through maximizing the order frequency, the order value, and the retention over the long term? So that's the growth model. And as I say, some of you will have seen that before. And the growth engine dashboard, the metrics are all about analyzing that. So this is our revenue, customer acquisition trends, and customer lifetime value. And you can see that each of these charts has got the actual trailing 12-month figure in the dark blue. It's got a trend line in the dotted light blue. And obviously these are the trailing 12-month periods over time. And on the right-hand side, as well as being able to switch between trailing 12 months and monthly, you can also turn on the benchmark. So I can turn it on by industry. And this tells me that actually in my industry, I'm doing really well. Even though it's trending down, you can see that, typical ranges for my industry are sort of, between 1 and 8 customers a month. And I'm achieving 17. So, I'm actually doing quite well against the industry. Although you can see that over time, this range has been trending up, and I'm now perhaps below. Well, I'm somewhere in the middle of that range. And the same for customer lifetime value. I could turn that on by industry, and now I can see that although my customer lifetime value is trending up, I'm really at the bottom of the middle quartile for businesses in my industry. So although initially it looks like I'm doing well there, in actual fact, if you compare me against the rest of my industry, I'm actually doing relatively poorly. I'm not doing the worst, but I'm doing relatively poorly, which really tells me that there's a lot of opportunity to do better here, and so I might want to focus on that. So the overview tells you how you're doing against that sort of basic growth formula. And then you can see, if I sort of scroll down the left-hand side of this, it's then broken further down into the key strategies of the growth formula. So here I can see how well we're doing in attracting new inquiries. And obviously this is analysing the inquiries in the CRM. So if you're not seeing any data here, this is because you're not using the inquiries module. And you might want to look at that. And you can see that actually that's trending down a little bit. So maybe I should be looking at my marketing and how I can drive that up. And again, if I look at the cell analysis, this is telling me how many of those I'm successfully converting into qualified opportunities. And importantly, this is qualified opportunities that are analysed with the customer acquisition outcome. So just very quickly to explain that, what that is. If I go to create a new sales opportunity, obviously I choose the pipeline, and I might have pipelines set up specifically for the objective of customer acquisition. So you can, for each pipeline, you can say the expected outcome of opportunities in this pipeline is customer acquisition. So then when I choose that pipeline, I get a default value here. But you can also specifically go and say that this opportunity that I'm logging here is a respend objective or is a upsell objective. And as I say, for the purposes of sell and sell in the context of customer acquisition, we're only analysing the sales opportunities of customer acquisition. And we have, through various algorithms that we put in place, we have gone back and historically analysed all of your opportunities based on whether the customer you were trying to sell to was a customer at the time that the historic opportunity was logged. So we have gone back and historically analysed these for you, but there is the possibility some of that analysis is wrong, and this might be something that you might want to review. But certainly, it's something you want to make sure the sales team are analysing correctly going forward. In order to drive these statistics correctly. And obviously then your close rate on those customer acquisition opportunities is then being analysed. You'll notice that at the moment there aren't necessarily benchmarks for all of these things, but we will be adding benchmarks where we can to each of these over time. But again, I can look at how good my close rate is against others in my industry, and you can see that at least in my demo system, my close rate is particularly high compared to the rest of the industry. Again, one of the other things I should say, if you want to understand a bit more about these benchmarks and these, Matty might correct me later, but I think these are T-bar analysis or something like that. Matty, jump in if I got that wrong, or correct me later. But you can find more understanding of what more information of what these are, so you can understand these benchmarks in the Growth Hub. Onboarding is a particular interest of mine, and Matty will talk about these later on. But just to really explain what this is very quickly, what we've got here is an analysis between the number of customers each month placing their first order. So we've got lots of customers placing their first order, so we are acquiring new customers, but we've got much lower number of customers placing their fourth order, which tells me that we're losing a lot of customers during that onboarding stage. We're not converting enough of those people who place a first order into relational customers who regularly then order from us. And that's a really common challenge, opportunity in amongst the customer base, amongst you, our users, that we've seen through this analysis. And there can be lots of reasons for this, but it usually comes down to either we're acquiring the wrong kind of opportunities, so we're not acquiring potential relational customers. We're acquiring very transactional opportunities, and maybe we want to tweak our ideal customer profile or the kind of marketing mix that we're doing to try and attract more customers who are going to potentially place multiple orders, or we are attracting the right ones. We're just not focusing enough effort on getting them through this 4-order stage and turning them into relational customers. We've perhaps got a sales and marketing team who are really focused on customer acquisition, and we've got an account management team who are really focused on looking after our long-term customers, and maybe we haven't got anybody who's prioritizing those new customers and getting to really adopt our products and become long-term customers, and we're not putting enough effort into that in the middle. Whatever the reason, if you look at your analysis here, you may well find you've got quite a big gap here, and that's one of the biggest opportunities that Matty and I and the team have found. We've been doing this analysis, and Matty will be talking about some of these scenarios and how you can analyze them a bit more in a second. Then we've got average order value, and again, this is definitely one where you might want to look at the benchmarks and see how your average order value compares by industry or by region. This is the EMEA region, or globally for all users, etc. And then order frequency and retention. How long are we keeping our customers for? Obviously they're the key things that then drive this customer lifetime value that we saw right at the beginning. The final thing that I'll say is that for each one of these, so if you look at average order value, for instance, down at the bottom, you'll see a direct link to an article that you'll find in the Growth Hub. But this article on each of these pages is specifically guidance, best practice, and education, and then CRM features that you might use to drive up average order value. So if you link through to that, it'll talk a little bit about where this fits in the growth strategies of the growth formula and the growth model. You can see this is the average order value here. How's it calculated? And then different strategies for improving your average order value. So I think with that, I'll now hand over in a second to Matty to just work through a couple of worked examples. But just before I do, just a reminder, what makes up the growth engine. It's that strategy, the growth formula, the growth model, and the growth playbook that I introduced you to in the Growth Hub. The metrics, the analysis itself, comparing that with benchmarks, all organized into the growth engine dashboard, and then back to the Growth Hub, the best practice, the education, and then the CRM features that leads you to implement to try and drive your growth. And all of that, if you can work your way through this stuff, it really will help you bit by bit to just drive up each of those metrics, and all of that bit by bit will add up to really accelerated sales growth in almost every business, and certainly the vast majority of the businesses that we serve in our customer base. Okay, over to you, Matty.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. I hope you can all hear me all right. So yeah, just to remind you all, my name is Methuselah, or Matty, and I'm the associate from the university and sort of like the technical lead design on the growth engine. So Andy's just shown you a bit of the demo of what the growth engine looks like, and how to sort of work your way around it. But I'm going to sort of talk you through some what we're calling worked scenarios to help give you an idea as to how you can look to incorporate using the growth engine into existing sort of workflows and whatnot. So we sort of define a problem, then we come up with some considerations, and that leads us to some actions or recommendations from the Growth Hub. So Andy, are you in control of the slides?
Yeah, I can do. Or you can take control, but I can move you on.
Brilliant. So yeah, we'll start with scenario 1. what we're saying here is, you might find that these problems resonate with you, or maybe not, and there's hundreds of different considerations that can come from them. But here we've got, perhaps you're really busy. You've got a lot of customers placing plenty of orders, but you don't quite see the growth that you were expecting to see. So then teasing that out into some considerations, you might want to consider looking at your order volume or order frequency, and then order value as well. Perhaps comparing those. Perhaps there's too many customers placing one or two orders, and this goes back to what Andy mentioned previously, just now in the demonstration, looking at the onboarding chart. So perhaps you're just getting all these new customers through, and you appear to be very busy, but actually, when it comes to full growth, they're not being transitioned to that relational customer base, which is obviously very important. So if you next slide. Yeah, so what might you look at? Going to the order frequency, or in this case, order value. This customer shows that it's negatively trending, which that's probably a good reason why you're not seeing much growth there. On the other side, you might see the onboarding instance, and that's, well, similarly, you've got a negative trend for your new customers, which is in the light blue, which is the larger bars, and a very flat trend line for your fourth customers. Now that probably sort of shows that you've got a not a very good, but it's a it needs improvement. The rate at which you convert those first order customers to that fourth order, but actually also shows that those first orders are dropping. So there's definitely room for improvement there from a sort of operational standpoint. And you look at this graph, and what do you do next? And that's you look at the growth hub, which, if you go to the next slide, this is where you'll go to get some of those actions. And obviously Andy mentioned that, where you'll have all these documents here, and this hopefully will be a resource pool that will continue to grow. And from here, you might get some actions relating to things like improving your upselling, improving your cross-selling, and using features such as the magic matrix, which are already in the growth engine, not the growth engine, sorry, the CRM, and trying to nurture those new customers. So perhaps there's some improvement there for that post-first sale, in between that and once they become that long-lasting customer, introducing new techniques or introducing sort of better loyalty schemes. That could be a route to take as well. So obviously we mentioned the growth engine hub. If we go to the next slide, there's a few different ways to actually find the growth hub. Andy showed you one earlier, which is directly through the growth engine. And we can see every chart will have a bunch of text at the bottom. And when it's highlighted in blue, you can click on that and it will take you directly to a corresponding article in the growth hub. That's one way to do it. The second way is to go to the question mark in the top right of your CRM. And if you scroll down, eventually you'll find a little collection of documents called Growth Hub there. And that's another way to do it. And the final way is quite a neat way, is just to open up the chat box. And from there, you can just type in with the AI chat assistant, what is it trying to look for? You might want to be, how do I access the Growth Hub? And this should, once it loads up in the text, it's it'll tell you a little bit of how to do it directly through the document section, but also it'll give you a little link which you can click on, and it will take you again straight through the Growth Hub. So there is a lot of availability there to get to the Growth Hub. It's not just direct through one route. Moving on to the next worked scenario that you might find. We're getting loads of new customers. Our sales teams are always busy, but it's not translating into as much growth as we'd expect. So perhaps you've had like a big push, like a big marketing campaign or something that's fairly recent. You sort of expect a bunch of new customers to come through. And you see that, but is that genuine? So you've got a lot of inquiries, but perhaps those aren't new customers. So perhaps the close rate's quite poor, or perhaps you're attracting a load of new customers, but at the same time you're losing customers, and that's when we look at things like your retention. And first of all, you look at attract, and you say, well, yeah, it looks like the inquiries logged, for instance, in this case, seem to be going, at a very, very good rate in a positive direction. So that's a very telling thing that perhaps your marketing campaign has worked, and perhaps you do have a load of new customers coming through. And well, looking at the retention, this is probably where this customer is failing a little bit there. those new customers come through, but are they being converted into that long-lasting customer? This would probably indicate that no, there aren't that many being transitioned to those fourth orders in a long-term sense. So we can see there's two charts here side by side. You've got the TTM, which is the trailing 12-month view, and then next to it you've got the monthly view. So you can sort of see the difference when you analyze both side by side like this. And it's important not just to look at one and make your conclusions from that, but to look through them together, look through other charts, and to draw conclusions that way. So again, like after this, what do you do? And that's look at the actions and recommendations that the Growth Hub identifies. And that's, for instance, here, using the missing orders feature within the CRM to try and find where you're missing out on orders, potentially to improve your relationship with existing users, existing customers. And maybe there is a problem there. Maybe there is a problem with losing those long-term customers. So implementing some sort of problem fix or identify some churn, and then trying to fix that churn is probably an important task there as well. And the final scenario we've got is, so perhaps you've got a great loyal customer base, but we don't seem to be adding enough new customers. You might want to think to yourself, like, is that actually true? Do you actually have a loyal customer base, or do you just think you do? Are there customer acquisitions charts, like, are they reflecting this? If you look into it a little bit further, do you actually have enough inquiries being generated to continue growing, or is the close rate poor inquiries? Are they generating inquiries, but the opportunity rate is poor as well? So there's a bunch of different things you have to consider. So first thing you probably check is the customer acquisition chart. And again, similarly, we've got both side by side, where we've got the trailing 12 months and the monthly. And I think this chart is a very good explanation as to why it's important to look at both together. You can see a very smooth, straight, positive trend from the TTM. But when you flick through onto monthly, it's a bit jagged. It's up and down. But then the trend line is a little flatter for the last 12 months versus the last 2 years. So it's important to understand the impact that looking at those trend lines has. So here, for instance, you are saying that it's you've got a very sort of consistent of around maybe 160 or so per month customers being acquired, which is pretty good, and that correlates quite well with what the TTM says as well. So actually, in this case, you do have a pretty good customer acquisition rate. But then let's go to the sell chart. Now, this is the opportunities being created, and this is a massive negative trend with a drop-off around the September-October point. So perhaps there's an operational reason for that. Perhaps there's, I don't know why, but maybe there's like a seasonal thing there where the sales have dropped off, or perhaps
or maybe the sales team are just too busy and they're not qualifying these opportunities.
Well, exactly that, yeah.
Qualifying the inquiries and not converting inquiries to opportunities just because they're too busy. Yeah,
that could be the case, especially if considering the number of inquiries or something might be coming through. It might be a lot more.
Or genuinely the inquiries are no good. You've got a volume, but the quality is poor, and the salespeople are not converting them because they're no good. Yeah,
absolutely. So what would the Growth Hub recommend for this? Is probably the next step of 10. So so it might tell you to go and deploy some inquiry web form, to help generate more inquiries. You might be prompted to integrate marketing tools, or improving your opportunities pipeline there. So going back to that idea of perhaps you are getting inquiries and opportunities, but not qualifying them in the correct ways or what have you. So those are the sort of 3 work scenarios that we had in mind. But again, these will be, you might resonate with some of these points. You might think of 1,000 other use cases for the growth engine. But obviously there's many different ways that it could be used within a workflow environment. But I'm going to pass it back to Andy to take it for the next section.
Thanks, Matthew. And obviously, those were just a few scenarios to illustrate the way the system works. There will be as many scenarios as customers on this webinar. And what I would say is, if if you're struggling to understand the data, or if you're not sure what actions you should be taking, even after you've worked with the Growth Hub, that's the time to reach out to your customer success manager and the CSM team and ask them to help you with that. And clearly, if they're unable to help you, then they'll call in the big guns and get Matty to take a look, or somebody from Brooks, or somebody else within the prospect team to take a look, and will help you to understand your business, what's going well, what's not, and what strategies for growth. And we're keen to engage in that way because I think, while we in the Brooks team have built the Growth Hub with these recommended strategies and best practices for these things, we've got plenty to learn as well. So if we can engage with you, understand the different scenarios, we can then improve the advice that we offer through the Growth Hub as well. Okay, just a couple of things to consider as you get to release 1, 2, 3 and get your hands on the growth engine. A couple of things to consider. Obviously, some of this data relies actually on your orders and invoices going through Unleashed or Xero, or whatever it is that you're using for your operational side. And that data tends to be pretty good because, if you haven't been putting orders into Xero or Unleashed or whatever, or Katana or whatever you've been using, then you won't have been shipping products out. So we know that people tend to have pretty good data there. And half of the growth engine relies on that analysis, and that tends to be pretty good. But in terms of the CRM data, sometimes there are features that people aren't using or analysis they're not filling in. So, if you're not using the queries at all, then you won't see any data in their tract, and you'll get a little overlay telling you that you need to generate some more data before you'll see anything. So if you're not using that, you kind of need to start using it, otherwise you can get that analysis. You might be using opportunities substantially, even if you're not using queries. Quite a lot of customers are. And for those, although you won't see anything in the tract, you would then start to see something in the sell and the close. But again, you do need to make sure that the objective that I showed you is correctly set, because we're only, for the purposes of customer acquisition, we're clearly only analysing the customer acquisition opportunity. So if you've got opportunities that are incorrectly analysed as customer acquisition, then that data will be inflated incorrectly. And if you don't have any opportunities analysed as customer acquisition, then clearly you're not going to get any analysis there. And once if you haven't been getting that data, or maybe if you just started using Prospect and Unleashed, or Prospect and Xero, and you don't have history across all of these, probably worth saying that you do need a minimum 15 months of data for the trailing 12 months to give you a trend. And you need a minimum of 2 months for the monthly view to give you a trend, because obviously 1 month is not a trend. And ultimately, using trailing 12 months is usually ideal because it eliminates that seasonality that I talked about at the beginning. The benchmarks do rely on there being relevant cohorts, and although we've got a lot of customers, so this analysis has been done on literally millions of transactions. In your industry, there may not be that many, depending on what industry you're in. So some cohorts are not available, will become available over time. Obviously as we improve the benchmarking, and also as more customers come on board in different industries. And then the final thing to consider if you've got that data is, do you understand the data? Can you interpret those charts correctly? Especially that onboarding stats, which I know is a bit confusing, but is really an important chart in all of this. Again, emphasize that it's B2B only. So, if you think that some of these figures don't match the figures that are in Unleashed or Xero, that might be because of we've eliminated the B2C transactions, and you want to make sure that's analyzed correctly. And the customer lifetime value charts, so the average order value, the average order frequency, and the customer lifetime value, they're actually only analysing people who have already placed at least 4 orders, because you just can't get an average order value or an average order frequency, and you can't really measure lifetime value, customer total lifetime, if that customer only ever placed 1 order. There is no analysis that you can sensibly do on that. So it is very much a 3-stage thing of, are you acquiring those those customers in the first place? Are you onboarding them? And then after you've onboarded them to their 4th order, are you maximising the customer lifetime value across that cohort? And one thing I meant to demonstrate, but I didn't, was a couple of customers have asked us, like, how do I see these customers that I've not onboarded yet? And that feature is already available. If you go to the RFM analysis and you look in the new customer segment, those are those customers. Those are the customers that you need to onboard. So hopefully your teams are already got a view of those and are keeping a view on those new customers and trying to get them through, but maybe they're just not spending enough time focused on those, and perhaps you need to drive them at it a little bit harder. Okay, so how do you get started with all of this? As I say, first of all, access the Growth Engine and the Growth Hub as you've been demonstrated in this presentation, and the Growth Engine will be available in the top of the navigation menu as soon as you get this release. Second thing is to just look at it, take some time to understand it. Do you understand it? Do you believe it? If for any reason you don't understand it, or if you don't believe it, then, as I say, reach out to your customer success manager or the support team through the chat, and we'll happily take a second look at it if you believe it's wrong, because it is in preview. It is possible that we've got that there's something special about your data that means that these charts are not calculating correctly. So that is possible. Or if it's not the case, we can then just help you to understand it. Once you're sure you understand it and believe it, then clearly it's time to take action. But you can't take action on everything. My strong recommendation is to look at the whole of the analysis, all of the growth metrics, and pick out the things where you believe you've got a real opportunity for growth. Where could you have the biggest impact on your overall growth by driving 1 or 2 of these strategies? Then refer to the Growth Hub for ideas and actions to drive your sales growth. Do a brainstorming session internally as well. And certainly if you find some good ideas that are not in the Growth Hub, we'd love to hear your great ideas as well. We don't have a monopoly on great ideas, and we'd love to hear other stories of success. And then, of course, this is not a one-time thing. Over time, it's important that you continue to assess, refine, and iterate on that. What have you implemented in your business growth? What has changed in the way you use the CRM? And then are you seeing the expected feedback, in improvement in those charts? Worth saying the analysis updates once a month. At the end of every month, it gets all recalculated with your analysis for that month. All of the benchmarks all get updated, and then you'll see a new set of data. If you're keen to get prompted for that, you can also subscribe through the notification system. You can subscribe to updates when the Growth Engine is updated. And then, of course, the final thing is please do give us your feedback. As I've said already, this is in preview. We're keen for plenty of good feedback, and we will be prompting you for some of that feedback. So just before I wrap up, as I've said, the Growth Engine is in public preview. Most customers should start to get access to it if they haven't already. In version 1.2.3, in the next couple of versions, we'll have some enhancements. It's currently available to all users on all sorts of subscription levels. It will ultimately be available, we're planning, to everybody on professional or advanced subscriptions, where you've got a standard or premier customer success plan, partly because we just believe that that there's an important role to play in the customer success team engaging with you and helping you to that. We are expecting that if you're not on those subscription levels, perhaps if you've got the startup subscription or the essential success plan, you will still have access to this for the next few months. So fill your boots while you've got it. And even after that, there will be some features of the growth engine which will remain available to everybody as well. So, don't worry too much about that at this stage. And as I said, we have got an active roadmap. Very much over the next couple of months, we're going to be listening to your feedback to shape that roadmap. But some things that Matty and the team are working on already are an update to the goals feature to make that work with the growth engine. So when you've identified one of these things that you want to trend upwards, you could then dive straight into actually setting some goals. How much higher do you want it to be next month, the month after, the month after? What are the actions that your sales team are going to take, and what goals are you going to set them around these growth strategies? There'll certainly be more emphasis and updates for the UX. From the early adopters, we've already had some feedback about making it easier to sort of step into taking action. Just the example I gave you earlier of like, where do you find these customers who haven't placed their 4 orders? And I explained that you can get there from the RFM new customer segment. Well, actually, we could clearly update the UX to link directly to that, and we're looking at ways that we can make it easier to take action from the growth engine. But if you've got some feedback on that, definitely give us some. We're open to ideas on that. We're clearly going to continue to update the advice in the Growth Hub, and again, your contributions to that would be great. So feel free to reach out to us in the chat anytime you like, but we will be sending surveys out to you. Jess and the marketing team, they love a good survey, and we love the results of the survey. So please do look out for those. That's your best chance to contribute and give us your feedback and let us shape the future of the growth engine to help you in the best way we possibly can. So with that, over to Jess.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've got some questions.
We've got quite a lot of questions. Thanks everyone for putting your questions in. Do put them in. Got lots to go through and a short space of time, so I'll crack on. So Joe is clearly a user of Unleash, so they're using Unleash for inventory management, and they're just wondering how this growth engine differs between the Unleash business intelligence tool that they get in Unleash.
Sure. There's bound to be some crossover. Clearly, half of the growth engine, the sort of the bottom 4 strategies, in actual fact, if you're using Unleashed as your inventory management, or if you're using Xero, whatever you're using, the data for those bottom 4 charts came from your Unleashed system and the integration that we already have in place with Unleashed. So that's where we got the underlying analysis from. Obviously, the top 3 are measuring things that don't exist in Unleashed, so that there's a clear difference there. Unleashed doesn't know whether you're getting inquiries, whether you're converting those into opportunities, or whether you're converting those opportunities into closed opportunities and sales. So there's a clear distinction there. But also, I think, we're going further with the analysis even of the Unleashed data, not just to tell you what it looks like, but to tell you how that compares with those benchmarks, and then really sort of trending that and comparing it with the benchmarks to really give you these kind of opportunities to growth. So some of the data is the same, but what we're doing with that data and where we're leading you to take action, I think is quite different. And then the final piece of that, of course, is that a lot of the actions you might take to drive up average order values, they would be things that you would action within the CRM rather than Unleashed. And so I think that's, those are the key differences. Good question, though.
Great, thank you. Quite a few people, so Scott being one of them, we've got a couple of anonymous attendees as well that have posted a similar question around where does the industry benchmark data come from? Where does it come from? Same question. Where's that data come from? Is it external, whatever? So Matty, maybe you want to throw to you?
I'll take that one. Yeah, sure. So the data that's supporting these benchmarks is collected from the prospect customer base. So we aren't combining with any external data sources. And ultimately, the prospect customers are using prospect in the first place because of the whole stock aware aspect. So, comparisons that we can make with existing customers make sense. If we are going to go and include external customers, perhaps software companies, the comparisons just don't quite work. Most of the customer base follows fairly similar business models and sales practices. So these benchmarks are fairly comparable. And I think someone asked here about what sort of the individual benchmarks that they come from. Yeah, so industry options and how granular are they? So the industry options, I think that's based on how you sort of declare yourself, right? Are you a engineering equipment supplier? Are you a food and beverages supplier? Whatever. But there's also the regions aspect. So you can go into the benchmarks, you can see how you compare against others in your region. You can see how you compare to every prospect customer, but that might not be the most impactful as looking at your industry. And there's the clustering aspect as well. So you can see how you compare to a specific cluster of like customers, which you may or may not find the most useful, depending on how much of a niche you find your products and services are. And hopefully that sort of answers some of that around where the benchmark data is.
Probably worth adding that that was a deliberate choice for two reasons. One, it was data we had access to, but also it's the one that we guarantee is representative of you and similar businesses. The worldwide definition of SME includes some pretty large businesses actually, and might not be comparable. And also, in our niche, we know that a lot of our customers are very similar and in similar industries, so we're able to do that. The second thing I should just clarify is that the data that we're feeding to the benchmark engine is fully anonymized, so it doesn't include your name, your business name, or any of your customer names, and nor any of your product names, but also it's aggregated as well. So it isn't even the individual transaction data. It's the it's the total by month and things like that, and that's all. So the data that we're using for the benchmark engine is all anonymized and aggregated data. Okay, Jess.
Next one was just around, I mean, you briefly covered it, Andy, but just to reiterate, if it's costing extra for Growth Engine or if it's included in the CRM.
Yeah, so there is no charge for the Growth Engine. The restrictions are only, and as I say, at the moment available to everybody, but when we finally take it into general availability, the expected restrictions will be that some of it, for instance, the benchmarks and some of the more detailed analysis, will only be available for people on the professional advanced subscription, which is most customers, and those who've got the standard or premier success plan, which is also most customers. So ultimately, the vast majority of customers will have access to it for absolutely no charge.
Okay, somebody else has asked, which people in the business should be looking at the Growth Engine. They've sort of determined from your demo, Andy, that it really is kind of directors, sales managers. Would they be right in
yeah, that? I think so. I mean, actually, it sounds cheesy, but I am a big believer that successful businesses are run like teams. There's a hierarchy in every business, and there always will be. But in running my business, in running this business, I've been a big believer in sharing, what's working and what's not working, because you never know where the best ideas are going to come from. And many of you know that we have a big placement scheme, and we hire undergraduates every year. It's astonishing how many great ideas come from people who haven't even graduated yet, never mind had years of experience. Sometimes they're just good ideas, sometimes they're cute, sometimes they're fresh ideas. So I'm a big believer in sharing information. Inevitably, the people who spend their most time looking at this will be the business owners and the senior leaders. But I think you will want, certainly your marketing team looking at some of this as well, because, in some of the analysis we've done, we definitely have to question whether the marketing team are targeting the marketing spend in the right place, because, some of our customers are clearly, when you look at this analysis, generating a lot of inquiries that are not turning into qualified opportunities, or their qualifying criteria is wrong because they're getting a lot of qualified opportunities that they're not turning into sales. So, different people in the business need to look at different aspects of it. But predominantly, yes, the owner managers will be looking at this the most.
Great, thank you. Probably one for Matty here. So we've got quite a niche product, so we're not sure that those benchmarks are giving us as much value as we'd like. So how could they use that a little bit better?
Sure, yeah. So I guess there's sort of feeds into a little bit what we're talking about around, the benchmarks. And, firstly, if you do find that there is absolutely no value from putting the benchmarks, you can always just not show them on your charts. If you feel like they're going to clutter up the charts and confuse you, don't use it. But ultimately, the benchmarks can provide a basis for setting realistic targets and achievable sales goals. So, if you've got a sales manager team or whatever, or your leadership team, they can look at those benchmarks and identify perhaps there is room for growth within the sales team. Perhaps we aren't pushing them as much as we should be. And even if your products are unique, understanding how you compare to similar niche markets can give you a better insights into overall sort of market health, consumer behavior. Are people trending upwards and downwards in terms of the amount of money they're spending in general? Are order values going up as a whole across customer bases or in the region or whatever? So the insights can be generated that might not directly relate to the products that you sell in your niche, but could help support those strategies that sort of push them in the back end anyway. I hope that sort of answers that there.
Thank you. I will move on to the next one. We've got quite a lot coming in. So a couple of people have asked about, at the moment, it's looking at sort of 2 years worth of data. Are there any plans to extend that? So, for example, one customer, keep it anonymous, but said that quite badly hit by COVID and would kind of like to see the data, the trends before and after 2020, just to look at that. Have we got any plans to maybe extend it in future versions?
I guess from my perspective, I think actually one of the COVID was a deliberate reason to sort of not go back too far, because I think comparative trends with that COVID period might be not too relevant. But Matt, it's also about sort of the processing of all of this data as well, isn't it? Is why that's not to say we can't change it, and if enough people want us to look further back, then that's definitely something we'll consider. So maybe Jess, we can put that into the ideas portal, and if it's something that a lot of people want and vote on it, then we'll look at it. Yeah,
agree with that.
Somebody asking about being able to analyze the graph a little bit more easily to read the values. So and one thing you can do that we didn't really show is you can actually just click and drag to really hone in on a specific area of the chart. So I guess just any kind of usability things to make it easier to view the data. Aside from that,
you mean doing that
exactly like that? I think that demonstrates a little bit more of what you can do with those charts. But ultimately, if there are specific things, then put it in the feedback form or put it towards the ideas portal, and all that sort of stuff will be very helpful in trying to improve this.
And then we just got a couple more about somebody quite like to get some advice and best practice around using inquiries, because they don't think their business is really using that enough. So yeah, we can certainly reach out to you with some documentation for using inquiries, which has some best practice advice. We also have obviously inquiry web forms, so that makes the sort of the generation of inquiries more automated, and they're feeding into your CRM kind of in volume rather than manually adding inquiries every time. So we'd probably recommend doing some of that. We also have a webinar pre-recorded that I can send you as well. Hopefully I can get your name though, because you're down as anonymous on here. So maybe you can drop us an email or a message or something to say who you are. So we can give you that. And then just one around the units of the order frequency. So what's the units of the order frequency?
That's looking at average numbers of orders per month. So if it looks like if it's a number of, let's say 4, that means on average customers are placing 4 orders per month. If it's 0.5, that means they're probably placing 1 order every 2 months. It's all sort of done on a monthly basis. The whole growth engine is running on a monthly analysis there. So that's done on a monthly basis. Brilliant.
Great. I think we will leave it there. Thanks, Andy and Matty, for the presentation. Great to see it all come to life, and hope everyone's excited to start using their growth engine.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jess, and thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone, appreciate it. Take care.